The college football playoffs, final four teams is set. Alabama being in was the right decision. We're going to talk about that and tell you why coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydays. I'm your boy, Damian Barson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. Got to kick this thing over to my guy to introduce himself, Mr. LSU Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, and what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. What we say, man, we talk college football, we talk NFL football, but like we like to say, man, it all starts with the NFL Draft. So I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us, man. Go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and remember to comment. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, man, because this is an action-packed show. We're giving you our takes, right, on the college football playoffs. Like we said, we talk everything college football, NFL football. We're going to talk about the good, right? We're going to talk about the bad, and then we're going to get an appearance from Coach K, Coach DP, man. We're handing out game balls from championship weekend, where we're going to cover these prospects that you need to know, prospects that balled out, man. So DP, before we get this thing started, man, why don't you handle with our title sponsor?
Guys, go download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. The good, Keith. The final four has been set. No more final countdown. We're here. We know what the four teams are now, Keith. And number one, for anybody that's been living under the rock the past couple of days, we got Michigan at number one, Washington at number two, Texas at number three. It makes me feel good because I said Texas was back at the beginning of the season. And Texas at number three and Alabama at number four. So, Keith, when you think about the good of this, as I said in the cold open, for me, putting Alabama in was the right choice. That's the good for me. Putting Alabama in is the right choice. You know, I'm not a big SEC guy, such as yourself, right? But I felt like Bama absolutely deserved and earned their way to being the last team named.
Yeah, they definitely earned it, right? And it's about it's the playoff committee. To me, they make it so confusing and honestly when they can make it so simple, right? And I think if you put the threshold and you put the marker, if you're the college football playoff, what four teams do we feel like have the highest chance of winning a national championship? That's the four teams that's going to go in. If you use that statement and you say, what four teams we believe have the highest chance of winning a national championship, that's the four teams that we're going to take and we're going to put into the college football playoff. If they use that parameter, they kind of clear some stuff up. They muddy stuff up when they get into resume and strength of schedule and
the best like four teams, Keith. That's what they keep telling us.
Yeah, the best for what? But what best is what does that mean, right? When we're talking about the best four teams, so I think if they would just use that statement, matter of fact, DP, I need to be the commissioner, right? Because I can get up there and tell people that we chose the four teams that we believe have the highest chance to win a national championship. And looking at it, DP, because I would say I agree with you with the Alabama thing, and people will be like, oh, but Alabama lost to Texas and stuff like that. But yeah, but right now, where they stand right now, week 13, right after the championship game, they're playing really good football. This Jalen Milroe is not the same quarterback week 13 that he was week 2. Their offensive coordinator, what I think is Tommy Rees, I think. Yeah, Tommy Rees is not the same guy that he was week 2, right? Week 3 when they benched Jalen Milroe in the South Florida game and they tried Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner. This is not the same football team. DP, did you see the tweet? Right, that I tweeted out when they were moving guys off the line of scrimmage? This is not the same offensive line for Alabama, right? So I agree with you that they did the right thing by putting Bama in. Now, I'm going to go with, though, and that's why I say the best 4 teams to have a chance to win national championship, I'm going to go with Texas, DP. That's my good. And I was happy when I watched the Texas game. And the reason why was this, that Texas was overlooked through much of this process. The minute that Quinn Ewers got injured, it was almost like they had a crescendo, and they had a week 2 crescendo, right? That when they beat Bama, their stock was sky high. Then they lost Oklahoma the next week, a week after, right? And then Quinn Ewers gets hurt. And then it was just like, I feel like Texas just kind of went away. But that's why I always say college football, NFL football, it always starts with the draft prospects. That's why people listen to us, right? People don't understand how many draft prospects, how talented this Texas team is. Yes, and that's why the Oklahoma State game, right? Like them doing things like getting Tavondre Sweat, the big defensive tackle, getting him some shine, right? Then you see Byron Murphy shows up, right? You look at the cornerbacks, you look at Barron Terrell. Then you go to the offensive side of the football, and people realize, oh man, A.D. Mitchell, he's a really good wide receiver. Oh, Xavier Worthy's really good. Dang, I forgot Quinn Ewers could really sling the rock, right? Jatavian Sanders out here making plays because he's the second best tight end in this draft class. So I like what Texas did in the game, and then I like that the fact that the playoff committee put them in, because when we unload and we get back into the scouting notebook, we're going to have about 12 to 15 Texas players, if they all declare, DP, that we're going to talk about, because this is a talented team.
No, 100%, Keith. And I think that's where, like you said, tying into the draft, the opportunity for, like, think about the prospect matchup we get. Because like I named off the top 4, right? But for people who want to know, well, who's playing who, right? It's Michigan, Bama, and it's Washington versus Texas. So you talk about a QB matchup, which, if I remember correctly from last bowl season, Washington and Texas played against each other, if I remember correctly. So you're going to have Michael Penix Jr. versus Quinn Ewers. Now, Quinn Ewers, all reports, every signs of him going back to school, but nothing. What's the phrase? It ain't over till the fat lady sings, Keith. So if he go out there and get to the national championship game, who says he don't declare?
Come on out, Quinn Ewers. You did enough. You did enough.
Strike while the iron's hot, baby.
Strike while the iron's hot. And this is the other thing with Quinn Ewers, right? That don't risk getting injured again, right? Like, you don't want to make it 3 years in a row where you've had some type of shoulder labrum injury. Like, go out on a high note. Listen, you brought Texas back to the playoffs. This is the most relevant they've been as a football program. So go ahead, declare. I don't think there's much more you can do. You're not going to get 2-3 inches taller. Your arm is not going to get that much stronger. You're not going to gain 40 pounds, and you're not going to look like Justin Herbert or anybody else after this, right? You are what you are. You're a talented quarterback. Going into the draft, man, everybody knows that you can play high-level football. So, yeah, I agree with you, DP. Kind of ride.
I love that, how you put that out there, because, like you said, you don't want to go back and get hurt again or risk the chance, because right now, we forgot you had gotten hurt, brother. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you came out and you've played so well. We forgot you were injured this year. Okay, yeah, they'll probably come back around at the combine and they want to test you, make sure the medicals are fine. But as long as they all get the green flag and not a red flag, you good, right?
Yeah,
but if you go back for another year, get dinged up again, and it's like, okay, that's 3 years in the row.
Yeah, you want it to be a coincidence, not a routine, right? Like, there's a routinely injured, and then there's coincidence.
Are you always hurt, Quinn? Like, I don't know if I want to draft you in the first round. I can't commit that type of money to you if I know you're going to miss 4 games a season. So I think that's big. The other good thing I would say, Keith, from a prospect situation, not just that game in terms of quarterbacks, but we're going to have some great matchups, in the trenches in these games. You know what I'm saying? Like, some big-time matchups on both sides of this playoffs, man. Talking about Braylon Trice versus those Texas offensive tackles, right?
Christian
you know
Jones
what I mean? And like Jabbar Muhammad versus Xavier Worthy, like two kind of smaller, like, they don't have the ideal height and weight, for their positions, for people to draft them as high as their talent is. But those two guys get the battle.
You're going to get, and this is the thing, because sometimes, they say styles make fights, right? But in this first round, both of these teams, both matchups, they encompass teams that have the same style. Michigan and Alabama, they want to do the same thing: set the line of scrimmage, run the rock, play good defense, set the tone. Washington and Texas, they're trying to put 40 up on you, right? They've gone outside. They're trying to put 40 on you. So I think that's what's going to make this fun, is we're going to see almost like they're going to see mirror images of each other, right? And this is when you start to get into the coaching stuff, and you get excited about who is going to dial up what play. But DP, listen, man, that's the good, right? But now we got to talk about the bad, and we know what the bad is. Florida State isn't in there. Ohio State's on the outside looking in. Georgia has won almost 30 games in a row, and they get left out. They said that they're not one of the best 4 teams in the entire country. What? So we're going to get into this. We're going to have this conversation. I know everybody had their take on it. You're going to get the Locked On NFL Draft take on it coming up next.
You shouldn't have to worry when it comes on to buying your next set of tickets for the next big event that you want to attend. But if you wait to the last minute, you will. You will have to worry because of the last minute. You're competing with other buyers. All right. You're trying to avoid dealing with scammers and scalpers, and you're trying to find the best deal. But let me tell you about GameTime. They are the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. What else do they offer, DP? Tell us. Well, let me tell you then. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Their tickets are easy to find and buy. But this is the best part to me. They show the views for each seat, all the seats in the venue. So before you purchase that ticket, you know what type of vantage point you will have. Guys, tonight, the LA Lakers host the Phoenix Suns in the quarterfinals round of the in-season NBA basketball tournament. And if you want to see this game, you can get it as cheap as $50 on the GameTime app. So all you need to do is download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. No Georgia, no Florida State, no Ohio State. Man, Keith, I think for me the bad, and we know what we talked about last week when we previewed the ACC championship game. I said, listen, I didn't think that the committee is going to put Florida State at 4 before that game and then be like, oh, now we're going to put Bama in instead of you. We're going to put Texas in instead of you. Well, you know what? The committee actually did that. They definitely did that, Keith. And that was the bad because Florida State, you know, it did put kind of a quote-unquote black eye on the sport because Florida, we talk about prospects. I think Florida State's one of the top 4 rosters in the country, right?
Easy.
You know what I mean? Top 4 or 5.
I'll put them top 2. I'll put them top 2.
Listen,
like they can go to war with anybody.
They're loaded with prospects.
Yes.
But it's the quarterback situation. So it's like them being left out. They ran the table. They were undefeated. They have quality wins, so forth and so on, right? And then they got left out because Jordan Travis got hurt because Tate Rodemaker got I think it was a concussion. Yep. You know what I'm saying? In the previous week, so we couldn't see him stack back-to-back games and say, okay, I think you mentioned the Cardale Jones thing we talked about on the episode. If he came out and played like Cardale Jones, the committee said, okay, we'll let you guys in. But he did, you know, we couldn't see that. And then I think they only had like 66 yards passing the whole game. You know, the committee was like, ain't no way. There's no shot. We're letting this potential go into the college football playoffs. So I think the bad for me is them. Keith, do you have some sympathy for Georgia?
I don't. A little bit. I would say a little bit. I would say a little bit because we have a hard time making an argument, right? That they've won all of those games and their one loss was to Alabama by 3 points, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about the threshold of 3 points, you're talking about a couple plays here and there, right? And so the question is, do you believe that they're a top 4 team? And this is the issue, right? Like this is what the committee should have did. They should have said, hold on, I know, timeout, call something, call an emergency meeting. Listen, we can like we have too much respect for the game of college football and the college football fans to roll 4 teams into this college football playoff, and it should have been 6, right? Y'all going to 6 or 8 or 12 next year anyway, right? 12. Just make one of these bowl games another playoff game, right? Sit out the first and the 1 and 2 seed. Let 3 play 6, 4 play 5, right? And get that figured out, because when I look at it, DPS like that, the bad for me is that we don't get to see the Florida State story end, right? We don't get to see Georgia, right? And that's the cutoff for me. I think Florida State and Georgia deserve to make it. Like we said, Georgia was on a 29-game win streak. They haven't lost in 2 years, right? They were 2 years ago. That was 2021. They haven't lost since then. And now they can't even make the playoffs because they lost to one of the hottest teams, right? Now, if Bama goes on to win a national championship, now we look at Georgia's season where they've run the tables, haven't lost a game in 2 years, and the only game that they've lost was to the national champions. Now, you tell me that you know what I'm saying? Like that's not fair to them. But also when I look at it, right, I can't kick anybody else out. So my bad, DP, is the fact that the committee didn't scrap this model this year, because this was the first year that this model bit them, right? Because all other years, you know, we like it was kind of like week 9, week 10, we was like, oh, this is gonna be crazy, right? But then week 12 get played, championship weekend get played. We're like, all right, that's the 4 teams. Sometimes we even felt like it's not 4 teams that have a chance. But DP, there's legit 6 teams: Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, and Georgia that all deserve to go to the national. I mean, to have a chance at the national championship, because what you did was, and if you use the barometer, DP, that I talked about in the last segment, right? The 4 best teams to win a national championship. Then this 4 makes sense, right? I'm perfectly fine with that. But I have a tough time leaving out Florida State also, DP, because you went undefeated. Y'all made the schedule. We lined up against them. We played them and we beat them. We deserve an opportunity to at least be able to figure this thing out, right? I deserve that, to figure this thing out. If I'm gonna get beat by 40, that's on me, right? With my 3rd string quarterback. But what if I beat y'all, right? Like we say, any given Saturday, any given Sunday. And this was the other part that I thought about, DP, when I was watching. And I literally just, before we recorded this probably 10 minutes ago, because and it kind of made me a little bit more angry with Florida State being left out, was I forgot that with the college football playoff model, right? It's not like the NFL where you make the playoffs and the next week you play. They have 3 weeks off. So that's 3 weeks of tape Rodemaker being able to get reps, play design, being able to call plays. So Florida State and Tate Rodemaker would have had 3 weeks to figure it out. And when I thought about that with the playoff model, that made me even more angry of having Florida State left out, because you can't tell me that Mike Norvell can't dial up or figure out some plays if he has 3 weeks to sit on that, right? So that's another thing when I thought about that, you know, when you bring in that dynamic and that complexity, that the playoff committee messed this up, because they should have went right off the script, right? I don't know what contracts y'all had, but for the college football fans, y'all should have scrapped that, and we should have got 6 teams this year, because there were 6 teams that deserved to go to the playoffs, and college football fans, we deserved it.
Keith Sanchez for college football committee president, guys. You heard it here first.
Talk to me, DP. Talk to me.
Podcast. Keith, no, I'm with you though.
I just made my case, DP. I made my case, right?
You did, and I love that, and I'm with you, right? Like Georgia ran the table 30+ games straight. I think for me, the reason why I didn't have sympathy is because remember the Bryce Young SEC game, championship game, where they got whooped. Like, you know what I mean? Like Bama kind of boat raced him in that second half.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, that was the game when John Mechie got hurt, but Jameson Williams was cooking. They had no way to defend him. And like Stetson Bennett couldn't go throw for throw, score for score. And they ended up losing by double digits. And it was like, whoa, Georgia lost by how much? You know what I mean? Like it just, you didn't think to hear that even against Bama. And then they put them both teams back in the top 4, right? So I felt like I was like, I thought they were going to do it again, but I'm happy they didn't, Keith. I was very happy they didn't. I was like, man, whoever wins.
I was close because, you know, I kept saying it was going to happen. I'm like, watch this happen. This is going.
I thought the same thing. I was like, man, they're going to put both Georgia. I was like, it's going to be Georgia, Bama, Michigan, and Washington. I thought they were going to leave Texas out, right? But I think it was so much noise around the fact that, man, Quinn Ewers came in there and ball. Jatavion Sanders came in there and ball. Xavier Worthy.
They won with style points,
right? Like they beat Bama by like 2 touchdowns, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, DP. If they'd have lost that game, I mean, if they'd have won that game by 3 points, I will guarantee you Georgia would have been in their playoffs. They needed to win by a lot, and that's what Florida State needed to do. Florida State needed to go out there and win by 30 or 40.
And Louisville's quarterback Plummer, like he played horrible. He played horrible, and you still barely won that game. So it's like, I get the committee.
So that's the part when you look at it and you like, can they, you know what I'm saying? Can they do it with a 3rd string quarterback?
You're not going to hold Quinn Ewers like this. You're not going to hold Michael Penix down like this. Like those boys are going to put up 20+ points. And if your offense can't go score for score, this is going to be bad football. And we don't want that in the college football play. I get that's the only reason why I compartmentalized it in that way. And I was like, okay, as much as you know me, Keith, I wanted Florida State in. But I tweeted out, I get why this happened. You did not handle business on what was that Saturday night.
Saturday night.
My best friends was at the game. You know what I'm saying? He went to the game. He said, man, you know, I didn't expect it to be as close as it was. I'm like, it shouldn't have been. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you what, for me, the bad is that we talk about Latu Latu as like potential edge one for the 2024 NFL draft class. What bothers me with Florida State not being in, key from a prospect standpoint, is that Jared Verse, who's been on the tear the last 2 weeks, I think double-digit pressures, 4.5 sacks, he's been dominant. And he doesn't have the chance on the biggest stage to show I'm edge one, to prove the teams that there's nobody better than me in this class. And he doesn't have that opportunity. Keon Coleman losing some ground to Roma Dunze, right? Malik Neighbors has solidified himself as potential wide receiver too. Marvin Harrison sitting on that perch like, I ain't bothered, baby. I'm good over here. The rest of those guys for wide receiver too. And Keon Coleman doesn't have the chance to go out there and showcase why teams should pick me, because I don't, Keith, I don't know how it's going to shake out. But Georgia and Florida State face each other in the Capital One Orange Bowl on Saturday. That, you know, not New Year's Eve, but New Year's Eve, the day before New Year's Eve, they face off. We can have multiple opt-outs: Jared Verse, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson, right? Braden Fisk. We can have a lot of guys opting out. Robert Scott on the offensive line. It's just a lot of it's a bad thing, man. It just sucks. I agree with you, Commissioner. We should have had six teams right now.
Well, DP, man, we're gonna keep this thing going. We're gonna keep it flowing, man, to the guys that played, right? And you mentioned a Florida State defender. I'm gonna talk about a Florida State defender and who I'm giving my game ball to. So, man, y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for the game ball segment that is coming up next.
Guys, I know that we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about being prepared for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right now in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can imagine a more helpless feeling than if my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my own mom, or my child got sick with a supply chain issue, keeping them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because we have Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, and sinus infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit Jace Medical and complete the physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacist at pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be more prepared than today. Go to Jace Medical and use the offer code LOCKED ON to get $20 off your order. Coach K, who are you giving your championship weekend game ball to?
DP, locked on family. I am going to no other. You know, we have to give the trenches love from time to time. And, you know, you talk about timely scouting, right? Like you find something right on time. You find a good thing right on time, DP. And you know who I found 2 weeks ago? Florida State defensive lineman Braden Fisk, right? And I said, you know what? This guy is talented. He is pretty good. Everybody talks about Fabian Lovett because he's been there a couple years, things like that. But, man, they got Braden Fisk as a transfer from the transfer portal. I can't remember if he's a grad transfer or not. And this guy can ball, man. This guy can flat out ball. And we seen it in the ACC championship game. This game, he was dominant, DP, 3 sacks, right? But the thing is this, not just 3 sacks. He has 5 sacks in the last 3 games, right? So he's really turned it up a notch. And it's not just the sack production, DP. This is a high motor guy. This is a guy that has very strong hands. He has good punch power, right? He has a high motor. He's active, right? He's disruptive. He has strong hands. So I just I like a lot of what I see about him. And I'm gonna go ahead and we kind of talked about this, and I'm gonna bring this to the podcast to talk to our Locked On family. He's listed at 6'5", 300 pounds. I thought about another guy last year that was 6'5", 300 pounds that played in the ACC, and that is Clemson defensive tackle Brian Bresee. I feel like Braden Fisk offers you everything that Brian Bresee offers you, and you're going to get the same level of talent, right? And so you look at it, and the reason I want to bring that name up was because I know that, you know, we look at names, right? Like star power and you know, Brian Bresee being a 5-star guy, I think Braden Fisk offers the same level of talent, and you can almost, they're interchangeable as far as their skill sets. So I'm elevating Braden Fisk, right? Like that, I believe he's a entrenched top end of the 3rd round at the very latest, and can go higher and elevate himself early into the 2nd round, right? Because I think he has that type of talent, and that's what we've seen on Saturday night, and that's why I want to give him my game ball, because like we said, the offense didn't look good for Florida State. Somebody had to dominate, and him tag team with Jared Verse, they dominated that football game and they won that game.
I love that because of the fact that I watched that game and I was like, this dude is everywhere. You know what I'm saying? It was like, I even tweeted it out. Like, you can't coach that.
Yeah, that's his best attribute. And that's not a knock to say that he doesn't do anything else, but you appreciate that so much when you have a big boy that's active like that, that has a high motor, that wants to be everywhere, that's always in pursuit, that plays with almost like a reckless abandon at moments, right? Like you want that from your interior defensive lineman.
No, 100%. You know what I mean? He's on his Miley Cyrus ish. He was a wrecking ball out there, Keith. and you like you said, it's not when you highlight that one of his best qualities is on top of being physical, being quick, being athletic, being powerful at the point of attack, having quick hands. It's on top of all his other skill sets, because that's the one thing you really can't coach into or up in the guy is to play hard and to not give up on plays, even if you're out of quote unquote the realm of making a play. You can still work yourself back into it. And I saw that. For me, Keith, you know, I got to stick with my ball carriers. I got to stick with my RBs, baby. And I got to go to that Pac-12 championship game. And while Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. out there, they traded touchdowns, they traded interceptions, right? They traded some good plays, some bad plays. But Dylan Johnson, 28 carries, 152 rush yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns at 6 foot, 218, 220 pounds. Shout out to my boy Russell Brown, because he hit me up and he said, man, I see Corey Dillon when I look at Dylan Johnson. And I say, you know what? I actually like that. Physical, tough, and he gets that cliche of getting stronger as the game goes on. That's Dylan Johnson. That's why they can keep feeding him the full. And Keith, what did we talk about when we previewed this game last week? I said, I need them to be balanced and get the ball into the hands of one of their best playmakers, that's Dylan Johnson. So for me, man, I think that, again, in a running back class that is kind of down right now, I think Dylan Johnson, we talk about with Quinn Ewers striking while the iron is hot. Dylan Johnson, I think you have a shot of being the day 2 pick if you were to declare and maybe hit up a Senior Bowl, a Shrine Bowl, whatever. Hit up one of these all-star events, because you know what I'm saying, you can go to them now since they're not just for seniors no more. But I think that what he was able to display, man, Oregon wanted to be the more physical team, Keith, and that typically they were, right? You know what I'm saying? They came into that game and Dylan Johnson said, not today, fellas, not today. You know what I mean? We're the more physical team. We're the dominant team. We're going to punch you in the mouth. Do you have a counter? Can you protect yourself? And while, you know, Oregon did the best they could, this young man to me was one of the deciding factors in that game, especially because Michael Penix still did have some head-scratching moments in terms of handling pressure, decision-making, things like that. You know how to settle that down? Run the football and get the run game going. So my game ball from championship weekend goes to running back for the Washington Huskies, Dylan Johnson.
No, I like that, DP, and I'm going to wrap this up real quick just by saying this, man. The emergence of Dylan Johnson, I think, is a big reason why Washington is undefeated. If they didn't have a run game, if he didn't perform well, we don't know if Washington goes undefeated, right? Because Michael Penix had a couple games in there where he didn't perform as well. So, you know, Washington being undefeated, I'm glad you gave the game ball to Dylan Johnson.
6 straight games over 80-yard rushing, Keith. 6 straight over 80 yards rushing.
That's the model of consistency right there. That's the model of consistency. Talk about model of consistency. DP, we are consistent in the hot fire that we drop, man, to the everydayers. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. My name is Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the Talent Code, and that is Damian Parsons. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Listen, that's our college football playoffs. That's our takes, man. College football is wrapping up. If you disagree, you agree, man, y'all make sure y'all comment to us, man. Like we always like to say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it's available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers, guys. We got stock up, stock down coming up. We have rookie report. We still have NFL stuff to talk about this week. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.